Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Ball and All podcast. My name is Mpho. I do the Ball and All podcast as my my courage moment, because obviously, I am a commentator of cricket, of basketball, soccer, and I want to do basketball. So I thought, hey, maybe let me do this, and I've been doing this for 2 years, but for the past 2 years, we've been in the Basketball Africa League, and that's what we've been doing for a while. You can follow me on the different platforms at Instagram and Twitter at Mpho, as well as subscribe to the YouTube channel. And we've been following the Basketball Africa League, and I've been doing a daily recap of the Basketball Africa League 2022. And we've reached the final day. This is the final podcast of the season. This is literally US Monastir, the champions, US Monastir, you were going to find out anyway, are celebrating with their trophy on the court. And I've decided to record the podcast because the final was worth its weight in gold. It was the final that we all been waiting for, and I'm going to unpack that. Just before I go through that, Zamalek played FAP in the third and fourth place playoff yesterday. Zamalek finally get their game where they are shooting 49% from three. It was 49% from the field, 54% inside, 43% from three. This was their game. It came a game too late. Maybe the pressure was off, but they beat FAP. It was 97. It was 94-79. Dow Strawberry scoring 20 points there, really good. Al Makawi, also known as Keja, he scored 18 points as well, so that was a really good win for them. They finished third, but we won't see them next season because they're not Egyptian champions. Al Ahly won the Egyptian league, which means we'll be seeing a new Egyptian champion coming through into a Basketball Africa League 2023, the third season, which I'll be hoping to be working on as a commentator, just speaking it into the universe and everyone can get that. What I admired about finals, the other thing I want to talk about is the Basketball NBA Academy, Basketball NBA Africa Academy game against Rwanda under 23's Babacar Sane, who played for the Senegalese team, actually. In this year's Basketball Africa League. It was each 12 teams got one player from the academy. All those players played in together now in a game, an exhibition game, and the NBA Academy did really well. They beat the Rwanda under 23 team. Babacar Sane, I'm a fan. Really, I'm a fan. He played for Duke. Big fan of his. He is going to go places. Star of that game. Really, really much so. Finally, let's go into the final. I thought it was a game of a little bit of contrasting styles. Petro de Luanda living on that 3-point line, Monastir being inside and being very defensive. I thought Petro would work the perimeter and stop that, and Monastir would try and stop the interior. But I thought it was evenly matched teams, two giants of Africa, African champions. Monastir, the home of the current Afrobasket champions of Tunisia. Petro de Luanda having won African continental club basketball competitions already over the decades, for the many years that they've been playing basketball. And so it was a great game. It started out like a house on fire. First quarter, 17-18. It was just haymakers, punches. But it was interesting because Petro de Luanda were hot from three. Monastir were just driving in. It was like it was an open lane. If you got a ball and you got a head of speed, they weren't going to touch you. And you would go in and you put it down. And you were like, okay, guys, we need adjustments. The adjustment that Petro did was a box and one. That helped them in the second quarter. They forced Monastir to try and shoot from three. Monastir finished the half 0-8 from three. That's what I thought, okay, this is what you need to do. Pack the paint and push them out. Monastir, on the other hand, were living off of turnovers. There were so many turnovers in this game. Petro de Luanda committed 27 turnovers. Monastir got 27 points from those turnovers. It wasn't a great offensive game from Monastir, but because not everyone. Majok was fouled out was in foul trouble very early. He had his 4 fouls early. He was sitting on the bench for large parts of the thing. Faraz Layani what a game from him. He scored 20 points. He came off the bench. He added that spark. He's normally Majok's replacement, and he did a great job because they just opened the lane for him. He just went in dunk after dunk after dunk, some insane dunks that they were coming in there. But Petro just kept on going. Similar amount of shot profile. Monastir scored 26, made 26 baskets. Petro made 23. Petro made more threes. I think Petro's final three percentage was it was 35%, whereas Monastir was at 20. It was 54 at one stage in the coming into the fourth quarter. Petro did go ice cold in the fourth quarter from three. They as the game, because obviously this game was a game of runs. Petro made very big runs. Monastir would come back, and Monastir made the big run at the end. And at the end, Petro trying to jack up threes that weren't working. Even though throughout the game, Petro's offense was a joy to watch. It was so beautiful to watch. They would weave it up at the top. They made the defense. This is the best defense in the tournament that you're playing against, and Petro were making them weave. Open shooters in the corners, taking shots. Carlos Moraes didn't have a great game from three. He towards the back end, he did well, but it was Gonçalves. He was there, putting down points. 28 points tonight for Lekeni Gonçalves in a losing cause, but it was all about Michael Dixon. When Monastir were making baskets, Sleman was a little bit cold. Solo Diabate didn't do that well. He was 2 from 9 from the field. Julius Coles Jr. was 0 for 7 at one point. They even took him off the court and brought him back on with 4 minutes to go, which I thought was a brave call. And they needed somebody, and Michael Dixon was there. 21 points, 70, not 1-7, 7-0 field goal percentage. He was that good tonight. 6 assists. He was the MVP for tonight. But it just came down to free throws. Monastir scored 76% of their free throws. They had 29 free throws. Petro had 22. They could only make 13. It was a 54%. If they make their free throws, this game is in. It's in the balance. Make the free throws, this game's in the balance. Both teams were a little bit sloppy, but Petro a lot more sloppier towards the back end. There was so many travels. You're like, guys, you're professionals. Come on now. Put that pivot foot down and work. So many travels. So for instance, Monastir made turnovers. They had 18 turnovers. They weren't punished for it. 7 points came off of it. 27 turnovers, Luanda, 1 point per turnover. That is criminal. If you halve that stat, you're champions. And that's something that Petro will be regretting. They had 3 players on 4 fouls going into the fourth quarter. 2 of those players got fouled out. They just found themselves in trouble. From a fouling perspective as well, but that's what it is when you have a defense, when you have a aggressive offense like Monastir that just pound you down the throat all the time, you are going to end up fouling them, especially because you're requiring that verticality, and it just wasn't there. And so that was it. Majok came through. He was announced as the Dikembe Mutombo Defensive Player of the Year for this season. He really had a great season. So many blocks. I think he came out with 1 block tonight. It was a massive one on Gonçalves. It kind of changed the game as Petro were trying to get back and maybe start another run in that fourth quarter. He came through. Julius Coles Jr. came through at the end. But one of the guys, Solo Diabate, he's a 2-time champion. He was champion with Zamalek. He's now champion in Monastir. He came through off the bench. But Usama Marnawi, loved him last season, love him again this season. Amazing player. He only scored 6 points. If you look at that scorecard, at that score sheet, you'll see at the box score, you'll see he only scored 6 points. But those were 6 incredible points. He opened up the game with 2 minutes to go. He had 2 steals. He had forced 2 turnovers, and in that, it helped them go through. It helped Monastir pull away 6 points, make it 8, and towards the end before this. But Ferez Layani, Usama Marnawi, really awesome off the bench in a game in that first half when they were looking to get with just one get. It felt like it wasn't clicking. There were 7 points down at halftime, and you kind of felt they're like, look, Petro, a front running team. They're shooting 54% from 3. Was it going to regress? Was it going to go back to the mean? It did, but it was still close. And I felt that at the end, it came down to who was the better coach. and the better coach went for twos instead of threes. I know in this game, in basketball worldwide, we're looking at jacking up threes. The three has transformed the game. But in that moment, in a Basketball Africa League final, Petro died by the three. Monastir just went straight through the key. They went straight through the key, to the rim. They got fouls, they got points, and they just kept on feeding Petro to Luanda the ball at the rim. Majok, Layani, Gayaza, Slimani went in, Manawi went in. And that's essentially what was the game. The moment Petro went to man, to that full court, or even to man towards the back end of that fourth quarter, that was it. It was just easy for guys to come in. Defensive assignments weren't being taken up, and it was easy. And the Petro team was in foul trouble. Team fouls, they were in trouble, as well as each individual player. So it just became a little bit easier for Monastir to come through. But I would have loved for Petro to do the same thing to Monastir. They were in team foul trouble. They also had a few guys on foul trouble. Slimani was on 4. Majok was on 4. They never put them under pressure. The only person who was making plays was Gonzalez. Everyone else was comfortable living off the perimeter and waiting, and it just stagnated. They moved the ball so well for the first 3 quarters. They would weave, they'd move it, they'd do screens, they'd do stagger screens, they'd get the ball to the open shoot, they'd take time off the shot clock. It was frenetic, but obviously from a pace perspective, it was really slow if you look at the scoreline. But they took time off the shot clock by looking for good threes, good points opportunity, and they found them, and they had Monastir in a hole. And then it just unraveled as the game went on. Obviously, the possessions became shorter. They became a lot more quicker. They were taking more contested threes. They weren't willing to go into the basket because there was a nice little mixture up front in the first half, and then that fell away. They were trying to jack up threes. They couldn't. They did try to go inside, and the only person who was going inside was Gonzalez. Nobody else went through. Yannick Moreira with the foul trouble, he kind of fell. You wanted a little bit more of him, even though he scored 18 points. Jean and Pedro, you can't get yourself fouled out, and you've only scored 2 points and 4 turnovers. Moreira had 8 turnovers in his 18 points and 7 rebounds. Great performance, but you're turning it over too much. So did Gonzalez, 28 points, but he had 5 turnovers. That's something that they're going to be crying as they go back home, because sometimes when you're in a final, you just don't know when you're going to come back. And you just want to make sure that you leave everything out. Monastir felt that pain last year. They were questioning whether they were going to come back. Because remember, they lost to Reg in Dakar. They lost to Reg from Rwanda. And that's why they were in the side of the draw when they had to play Zamalek. And so it wasn't an easy thing for Monastir, but you don't take these things for granted. And I kind of feel like Petro might come back next year into Basketball Africa League wanting revenge, wanting to right the wrongs. And if they make it into the final, I don't think they're going to make the same mistakes they did this time. So that's something that they need to look out for. But it's been a great tournament. It's been amazing. The MVP of the Basketball Africa League was Michael Dixon. He scored a bucket loads of points for Monastir. Majok wasn't having a great time offensively, because remember last season Majok was averaging double-doubles. This year wasn't that great, but Michael Dixon, a really great signing for him. He came through for this team, scored lots of points for them. I think he averaged about 20 points per game. In the final, he scored 21 points. He was the points leader for this team, and he thoroughly deserves this. 70% field goal percentage in the final is amazing. It's amazing. It's insane. And he really does deserve it. Anything he jacked up, he just went in. You're like, oh, okay. Is this how it's going to be? Hot hand. And they just kept on taking him off. And you're like, no, guys. Like, even the final 4 minutes, they took him off and put in Julius Coles Jr. I was like, that's very brave. But it was actually very good, because Julius Coles Jr. was driving straight through. He went through the heart. He got a lot of fouls. And he kind of redeemed his finals performance, because he wasn't having a great time because he hadn't scored points, and he scored 4 points in the end, even though it was 2 for 9. It wasn't great, but he got something. And then the defensive player of the year, my man, I've loved this guy from season 1. Season 2, he lit it up. He made sure those rims were well protected. Best defense in the league, set up by him. They funnel everything into him. He's their head. He's their rim protector. He's their guy. Yes, they do move on the perimeter, but you can still punish them because they're very slow. But they know, they funnel it into Majok. If you want to go for a layup, know that it could get swatted. And that is one of the great things for this team. So congratulations to Atamajok and congratulations to US Monastir. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the Basketball Africa Daily Recap. It's also the end of the Basketball Africa League 2022. We'll be back next year with Basketball Africa League 2023. But in the meantime, I'll be going back to normal programming. So we'll be doing a lot of WNBA stuff, as well as the NBA Finals, which are set to start next week. So I'll probably do an NBA Finals preview as the Warriors have gone back. And I think the Warriors fans are so excited. But until then, goodbye. Good night. Yeah, like, subscribe, follow me on the social media platforms below, subscribe to the channel. And yeah, let's get this growing. Let's make this a thing where I can do previews and reviews. And Basketball Africa League can have me on, whatever it is, depending. But yeah, it's what it is. That's my wish. I hope this grows as many legs. But thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for all the comments and all the support that I've received over this past well, it's 3 months because we were in Dakar, we had Cairo, and then we had Kigali. But outside of that, thank you very much. Well done to that Basketball Africa League team. See you next year. Goodbye and Lesale. Kakakis.